Okay, can you guys tell me that first problem that's the example that kind of has the work filled in for you? What's it say to do on all those problems? What are the directions?
Just,
We're supposed to find what?
the lengths of each side.
The lengths,
Yeah.
right? We're supposed to find x, in other words. We want to find the width of this rectangle. We want to find the length of this rectangle. Yeah, we're going to be using the quadratic formula to do that. Why do we need the quadratic formula to do that? Well, let's just see what happens. So we know the area, and we have some expressions for the length and the width. So how do you find the length or the area of a rectangle? Right. So that's the main formula from geometry. We've only done a couple geometry things this year. That's one of them. So length is x plus 3. Width is x. And the area is 80. So I'm going to put that in for A. If I leave it like that, I'm going to have problems and mistakes immediately. What do I need that I'm missing? Where do I need parentheses, Richard? Why is Richard telling me I need parentheses here? Because you got to like use the whole length, right? If you don't, you're only multiplying like a piece of the length, and that doesn't make sense. Like that wouldn't be a rectangle anymore. Okay? So good. All right. So if we've got something like that, what's the next step? We want to solve for x, right? So to solve for x, I think you guys should have the instinct of distributing. Yeah? So we're going to get x squared, 3x, and we've still got 80. And then as soon as you see that x squared, you should be like, oh, it's a parabola. Now I got to think, how do I know how to solve parabolas? Every time we solve parabolas, we always set it to 0 first, right? So we're going to set this to 0 by subtracting 80 on both sides. And now you want to say, does this factor or not? If it factors, that'd sure be nice. So let's check and see if we can figure out how to factor this guy. It's got a big number, 80. So, I don't know, I guess we could just write down some guesses. What are some factors of 80? 40 and 2. It's not going to give us 3, is it?
None of them are.
You sure, Richard? 20 and 4, right? We could make like, it's going to be really like 20 and negative 4. You're right, Taylor. But like I'm just writing the positive ones first. I mean, we can make these negative as we will, but if we make anything negative, the question is, can we get 3? I don't think there's any combination of negative 20 and 4, negative 4 and 20, anything like that that's going to give me 3, is there? 10 times 8, could that possibly give you 3 somehow? No, closer. I don't think it's going to work. Once you've tried for a while and you're like, this doesn't factor, a couple of your problems might factor. That'll make it a lot easier. You should use the quadratic formula. Yeah, those are the two main things. Two of the main things you got to have, or it'll make Algebra 2 a lot easier, is if you can factor clearly. We were using factoring a whole bunch today. How much of my Algebra 2 class, first hour, and they're a very good class, how much of them, when we were looking at this stuff with trigonometry, knew that they were supposed to factor in a couple spots? About 8 or 9 out of 25.
Wow.
And now it was a trickier spot to factor, but basically it's just factoring. It's the same factoring you guys have seen this year. So the question is, how deep has it sunk in? It takes a while for it to sink in. So that's the idea, okay? That's why we practice this a lot. Okay, so quadratic formula says x equals, do you guys remember it?
Minus plus.
There's a plus or minus. Negative b.
The square root of b squared plus 4
Times 4.
There's a 4 minus. There's an a, there's a c, and it's all over 2a. Great. Now, if you don't have that totally memorized yet, that's okay. By Algebra 2, though, you got to have it memorized. You got to be able to just pull it out. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're going to be spending way more time than you should. So, let's try this and see what we get. We might use our calculator at some point. So let's see if we go, remember it's A for coefficient 1, B for the x coefficient, and C for the last constant thing. So B is negative and a positive 3. B squared is 3 squared. I'm just going to say 9. Okay? Got our 4. A is what? It's right there.
X squared. That's the wrong.
1. C is negative 80. 2 and A is again 1. So now we need to simplify this. So I'm going to go negative 3 plus or minus. Minus times minus is
Positive.
positive. That's something you got to be real careful about with quadratic formula. And then 4 times 80, you might need your calculator for it. It's basically 4 times 8 though. Yeah. So I think you guys have this on that worksheet, right? It worked this out for you. Are we getting it right? So there you go. There's the quadratic formula, but we still haven't answered their question. They said, how big is this rectangle, basically? Like, what are the side lengths? So those are x's. I don't think I know the square root of 329. Do you guys? So I'm going to go to my calculator at this point and have it do that. So let's see. I'm going to go... And if I was you, I'd be entering this in your calculator. If you're not going to know how to do this yourself. So if you don't have your calculator out and aren't practicing right now, I know you're going to make mistakes on this kind of stuff. And I don't tell my advanced classes, in other words, the class after this, I don't say, hey guys, get out your calculator and follow along. We don't have time for wasting time like that. So you guys got to get used to just doing it. So my favorite way to do this is to use alpha y equals so I can get a nice fraction. Some of you guys have an older calculator though, so I'm going to do it that way. So I'm going to go parenthesis, negative 3 plus. Now I need the square root, so I'm going to find that. It's on the left side. 329. Divide by 2. Okay, so there's one of my answers. It says x is about 7.569. It didn't come out even. That means we couldn't have factored it. No matter how hard we tried at the beginning, there would have been no way to factor this. And now, to save time, I'm going to hit second enter. Because it pulls that thing up again. What's the only thing I need to change?
The plus or minus.
Yeah, this needs to be minus. There we go. Okay, so there's 2 possible answers, supposedly, for the sides of this rectangle. Do you guys think they both make sense?
The negative one.
Colton?
The negative one.
The negative one makes more sense than the positive one?
The negative one.
The negative one doesn't make sense. Why? This is not an answer. Because could this be negative 10 long? What's it mean to be negative 10 long? I don't know what that means, okay? So that doesn't make sense at all. So our answers are that this rectangle is 7.569. Did they have some units on there, guys? They should have. Did they say like centimeters or inches or anything?
No, it's just
numbers. Dumb. So let's say units. That's how wide it is. How long is it?
7.569 plus 3.
We're going to plug that in, right? So plus 3, we should be able to do that. It's 10.569 units. Sweet. So we answered their question. All right? So that's what they asked you to do. Did they ask for anything else? I don't think so. But on the next page, I asked you to do a couple other things, which are going to hopefully gel some of the stuff we've been doing with square roots lately, because this has to do with square roots. So I want to leave a couple things. I'm going to erase the rest. So let's leave the answer we got to the quadratic formula, and let's leave our original parabola that it came from. So I'm going to erase everything else. Write this down again up here. So the parabola we had to solve in this problem is that guy, right?
Yeah.
And those are the answers to it eventually. So what I want to do with our 2 answers, because there's 2 of them, right? There's a plus and there's a minus one, is I want to add those 2 answers together and see what we get. And then I want to multiply those 2 answers together and see what we get. We've been learning about square roots, so we should be able to do that now. Let's see what happens. So let's sum them, and this is the same thing I asked you to do on just a couple of yours. So what is the sum of the two answers to this parabola, the two roots? So I'm going to go -3 plus root 329 over 2, and I'm going to add that to -3 minus. Okay, can you guys help me reduce this? We'll use our calculator if we need to, but I don't think we're going to need to. Let's see. What should we get? So these have a common denominator, right? So can't we just put it all over 2?
Yep.
So we've got -3 plus, and then we've got a -3 and a minus. So can you guys tell me what to do next to simplify? Something nice should happen. What can you do to simplify that? We're just adding stuff together, right? Like terms? Some like terms, -3 and -3 is what? -3 plus 3 would be 0. -3 minus 3 is -6, isn't it? That takes care of those, so we still got an over 2. What about these?
Those cancel out.
Those go to 0 because there's positive that minus that. Does that make sense, Caden?
Yeah.
This cancels out, so it's like plus 0 or whatever. So what's that reduced to? Do you see a -3 or a 3 in the original problem somewhere? Where? It's negative, that's positive. This is kind of like factoring. Factoring, like the two answers that are the factors, they had to add up to this middle thing. So even something that can't be factored, even when you use the quadratic formula, still kind of works the same way. The quadratic formula is just a way for you to be able to figure out this much harder problem. Let's see what happens if we multiply them, because when you multiply for factoring, which number are you supposed to get when you multiply the numbers? You're supposed to get 80. When you add them, you're supposed to get this. When you multiply them, you're supposed to get 80. Let's see what happens if we multiply these together. So there's the sum. Let's do the product. So I'm going to multiply those together now, so let's see. There's the product, right? It looks ugly. Don't let it intimidate you. You can't be intimidated by stuff like this. Just do it. You multiply fractions, you multiply across the top and bottom, right? So across the bottom, what are we going to get? 4. And across the top, it's really like we have this. Yes? You guys got to distribute this. Don't you have to multiply everything by everything? So it's going to turn into a lot of stuff. What's -3 times -3? 9. That's that one. And then we've got -3 times negative root. That's positive 3 root. And this is -3 of the roots. That's going to cancel out, isn't it?
Yes, and then the other just cancels out.
And this is going to be minus times plus is minus. I'm going to write it down for you guys. You guys are saying it's going to cancel out. I like that. That's true. Very good. So these are the kind of calculations you're going to be doing in this practice. Definitely good practice, a lot of different skills we should have. These go away. They're like terms. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. So square root of this is 729. If you want to see that again, remember, another way to think about that is to go root 729 squared. And squared does what to square root?
It
Cancels. So we've really got 9 minus 729 over 4. Cody, are you watching, man? Like, I don't even know why you're in this class if you're going to do this kind of thing. Like, come on. Confuses me. So, let's see. 9 minus 729 is going to be negative 720. Sweet. What's negative 720 over 4? You might need your calculator, right? Guys, use your calculators. What's it come out as?
No, 180. Sorry, yeah.
Is it negative?
It's negative. My bad.
It's negative.
Okay. So let's see. Oh, I have a mistake. Where's my mistake? It was at the very beginning when we started to set this up. We can fix it easy though. I'll give you guys a second because I was hoping this number would be negative 80. It's so close. What's the mistake? Look at the problem, the answers we got when we did the quadratic formula. It was negative 3 plus or minus.
Is it
It's supposed to be 320.
Okay, I was wondering on that.
Yeah. You gotta stop me, Richard. You're like, where'd 7 come from?
Yeah.
Totally. That's where you guys gotta be awake.
I wasn't sure.
This
if
should
you
be
were just-
329.
I wasn't sure if you were just.
It's gonna work out the same kind of way, right?
Yeah.
So this is gonna be what? Negative 32 over 4 is. Boom!
That's better, yeah.
So even though when you use the quadratic formula, it's still pretty much factoring. Factoring is this all-encompassing idea that matters a huge amount. So I was hoping that this would prove that to you a little bit. And it's also got a lot of really good computational math in it for you guys to mess with, okay? So if you get stuck or something, this is on tape. You can have a look at it. I'm going to give you some time now to work. I might do one with a triangle at the end, we'll see, okay? So try out a couple of these. I think I only gave you like 3, so not many. So I think the triangle problems, I think I gave you 3 of those as well. They ask you not to find the area of the triangle. If it asked for area of the triangle, you'd want to do half base times height. They ask you to find the side lengths. So if they want the side lengths of a right triangle, I think you should know something about right triangles. Which is that they have that relationship with their sides. It's Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to try to solve for x using the Pythagorean theorem this time. So I'm going to say a is one of the legs, so x squared, and then b is the other leg, so x plus 1 squared, and c is 7 on this one. Remember, you've always got to make sure that you put c in the right spot. C is the hypotenuse. That's always the one across from the right angle. As long as you put that one in the right spot, it'll come out. Okay, so now I'm going to simplify. This is x plus 1 squared, so I got to expand it. There's 49 over there. So then this guy, I'm going to expand it, distribute it out. So we get an x squared, we get an x, another x, and 1. Okay, so what do we have now? There's some like terms. We have an x squared, another x squared. That's 2 of the x squareds. We have 2 x's. And we have 1. I'm going to subtract the 49 to the other side so that it's set to 0 so I can factor to use the quadratic formula. Now this guy totally might factor. I'm just going to use the quadratic formula. That's what this practice is all about. So let's see. Quadratic formula. I guess I'll write down what A, B, and C are just to be extra careful. So A's coefficient there, 2. B's this 2. And C is the negative 48. Remember, if there's minuses here, make sure you keep them for A's and B's. So now I'm going to go negative B plus or minus B squared minus 4 times A times C. All over 2 times A is also 2. Okay, we're going to simplify. So I have 4 minus minus is plus. If there's 3 minuses, that'd be a minus. Watch out for that. And then I have 8 times 48. I don't know what 8 times 48 is. I'm going to use my calculator. So that came out as 384. So this is -2 plus or minus the square root of 388 over 4. So we want the actual values for x, so let's use our calculator to get those. So I'm going to go -2 plus square root of 388 all over 4, and then I'm going to do it with a minus. So here's my two values for x. They both might work, but in this case, -5 for a side length of a triangle, I don't think makes sense at all. So this one's out. This is the only one. So that length is that. And if you go 5.424, that's going to be this length. Okay? So there's how you do one of those.